My name is David Trimble. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy and Education at the Religious Freedom Institute in Washington, D.C. We're fortunate to be here today with Erica Lizza, and welcome, Erica.
Hi, thanks for having me, David.
Great. We're here at the International Religious Freedom Summit here in Washington, D.C., where religious leaders from all over the world have gathered to talk about the importance of religion and religious freedom in society. Not just not America's society, but societies and cultures all over the world. So we want to talk a little bit, Erica, with you today, just about your background and where you grew up and your experience in school and kind of where religion and religious freedom played a role in all that. So tell us where you're from.
Of course. So I grew up in Michigan, just outside of Detroit. I grew up in a Catholic family. I attended a Catholic grade school before going to a public high school, which I think was my first exposure to the fact that there were a lot of people out there who didn't understand religion, didn't think it was important, or thought I was playing crazy. So I then went to Georgetown University here in Washington, D.C. for college. I studied international politics, and I completed a certificate in religion, ethics, and world affairs.
Oh, great.
So while I was there, I had a great chance to kind of delve into my own religious faith, but also to look at religion and religious issues in my coursework, which was really special.
Great. Well, of course, I'm with the Religious Freedom Institute now and their leadership team, but my relationship began with the RFI when they were anchored at Georgetown in the Berkeley Center of Peace and World Affairs. And you're mentioning Georgetown just reminded me of kind of the background that's very interesting about the Religious Freedom Institute in Georgetown. Georgetown's the oldest Catholic university in America.
It is, 1789.
And when I went there and met Tom Farr, the founder of the Religious Freedom Institute, I was working with Baylor University in Waco, Texas, the largest Baptist university in the world. And interesting enough, the two had formed a partnership to expand the work, deepen and broaden the work of religious freedom through the Religious Freedom Project that became the Religious Freedom Institute. So we had Catholics rooted at Georgetown, devout Catholics, and we had Baptists in Waco, Texas, combining on the topic of religious freedom. Very interesting combination.
It certainly is. So I guess one thing I would just add to your mention of Georgetown as being the oldest Catholic university in the United States is that, well, Georgetown is the oldest Catholic university in the United States and maintains that identity to this day.
Sure.
There are actually a lot of students at Georgetown who don't identify as Catholic. So something that was really interesting for me was going to a Catholic school that actually had an interfaith campus ministry office. So I was in a Catholic women's student group, but I got to know people who were in the Muslim Student Association, Buddhist Student Association. There were a couple different Jewish groups, a few different Protestant Christian groups. And so there was really kind of a lot of engagement in religion and religious beliefs across the whole spectrum, which was really great to see.
Yeah, that's unusual.
Yes.
On academic
yes, for
campuses across America, to be sure. I mean, you were very blessed to be raised in a devout Catholic home and then attending Georgetown University as you were. Let's talk about that a little bit more, though, while you were at college there at Georgetown. Many instances around the country today, it seems as though religion and religious freedom are either they're viewed as kind of a taboo subject. Students don't want to talk about it, or inconsequential and not discussed. So I'm wondering, in your experience at Georgetown, even within the classroom, would you say there was an openness to discussing the critical role, the value of religion and religious freedom in society?
It depends, I guess would be my answer.
Sure.
So certainly in a lot of the classes I was taking that were related to foreign policy, to security issues, anything of that nature, there was a lot of discussion about religion and culture and the effects those can have on governmental and political decisions. So that was certainly something that we talked about a lot.
Appropriate in those courses for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, I would say that there's a bit of I did see a bit of discomfort, I think, in some of my other classes when people would bring up an argument that maybe had a theological component or theological basis. or personal faith experiences. So within student life, people seemed very accepting of the fact that, there are people of a variety of religions or no religion at Georgetown, and that kind of informed their experiences, and it informed what they did on a Friday or a Saturday or a Sunday. It informed whether they might go out to a bar or something like that, or it would just kind of shape their priorities and how they live their daily life. I think where people got a bit uncomfortable was when those religious beliefs would translate into truth claims, or kind of more binding kind of commitments that seemed like they might be a little bit of a sticky wicket in a pluralist society.
Yeah.
So I think that's where people got uncomfortable. It wasn't with the idea of religion per se, or even religious people. It was just, well, how do religious claims and religious people sort this all out in practice? What does that look like?
Having those real integrated conversations that really involve truth claims, though, the things that really matter. I mean, why in the world did the founders, in our First Amendment, embed the importance of religious freedom, free exercise equality, we call it at RFI, the freedom of everyone to believe and then to express in public life their faith. So you have to be able to live out those truth claims. But you're right. I think it's a little more challenging today to have those conversations with each other because of our diversity in religion. There's a little bit of a lack of comfort,
Right.
And it's unfortunate, really, right? I mean, I think we solve some of our problems in culture when we're really able to sit around the table and exchange, information and in a respectful way about our truth claims. Doesn't mean that every truth claim is valid, but we ought to be able to discuss those. And that's really what's at the heart of religious freedom, right? The desire to search, the freedom to search for ultimate truth and a transcendent reality, and then to live out those claims when you find that truth. Well, it's interesting because it sounds like you had a college experience that was fairly open to that, and yet also was feeling the pressures of maybe engaging on a grittier level to talk about truth and faith. Well, you're in graduate school now. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yes, I am. So I took a bit of time between undergrad and graduate school. So I worked for 3 years here in D.C., but now I'm a graduate student at the Catholic University of America, another illustrious Catholic institution of learning here in D.C. Not quite as old as Georgetown, but it is the only pontifical university in the United States, which is pretty special.
Yeah. And how's your experience there? What program are you in there?
So I'm part of the Masters of Human Rights program, which is a pretty unique program. It has an interdisciplinary focus and examines human rights from philosophy, law, political perspectives, and really incorporates heavily kind of classical thought about natural law, as well as the kind of Catholic social teaching tradition about rights, about human flourishing, all of that fun stuff.
Fantastic. Well, we often say at the Religious Freedom Institute that religious freedom is really the linchpin of other human rights, that it strengthens other human rights. And I think even the way the First Amendment is written, it's written in a way that highlights that. And how religious freedom contributes to a host of societal goods as well, whether it's economic stability or equality under the law, equality in the workplace, for example, between men and women, health care, even climate issues, how faith people act out their faith in a way that respects community and respects the climate. It's interesting to see how religious freedom really moves from the margins of who we are to the center of who we are. Well, let's talk a little bit. We're here at the International Religious Freedom Summit. People from all over the world gathered to talk about religious freedom. And so that's why I want to talk a little bit about your experience in the past. But you've been part of a new program launched this year at the summit, between the summit and RFI co-hosting it, and that's the Young Leaders University Scholarship Program. Kind of a mini training seminar that we had on Monday. Just want to ask how your experience was with that this year.
So I'm really glad I was invited to participate in the program, even though, as we've kind of discussed, it was a pilot program. We're still working out all the wrinkles, but I really enjoyed it. It was great to to be exposed to students who are coming from a variety of backgrounds. We had undergrads, we had PhDs, we had law students from all across the country and from different faith perspectives as well.
Yes.
But I really enjoyed kind of getting to listen to everyone work through some of the theoretical concepts we were talking about.
Right.
What is religion? What's the sacred? What constitutes a right? Because I really think I benefited from hearing, how a law student might define a right. It's going to be very different from a philosophy undergrad or something like that. So I certainly enjoyed that. And I think that theoretical exploration is really key when we're talking about an issue as nuanced as religious freedom, because if you jump right to, well, religious freedom is good, it's important, everyone should have it, you're jumping over a lot of the objections people might raise or the misunderstandings that people might have about what religious freedom actually entails.
Yeah. Or the real foundational principles that make it important.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we were trying to get at in the short time we had together on Monday, is delving into some of those basic fundamental bedrock principles about truth and about religion and society, and how does the religious freedom really focused in on all of those and part of all of those. Well, thank you for being part of that this year in that new program that I think we're going to continue to grow next year. You were a great asset to have in there, and your points were, I think, very well received. One of the most refreshing parts of that seminar you mentioned for me, fairly small group this year, 12 or 13 students, but coming from different universities across the U.S., but the interest from a diverse faith traditions was well represented. Muslims around the table, devout Catholics like yourselves, others from Protestant universities, and yet I sensed a real common bond of wanting to work together, learn together, and kind of grapple with the issues that are tough issues about persecution, persecuting ethnic or religious minorities around the world. So glad to have you being a part of that.
Yeah, well, thank you, David. It was really a great opportunity. I'm so glad I could participate.
One closing question.
Okay.
Well, you're not just a young leader preparing for work in human rights. You're really doing it. In your graduate degree, I mean, you are preparing, but you're already engaged. So I want to ask you, as someone who is a little more advanced beyond just being an undergraduate, you're in a program that's really preparing you to really effectively work in human rights. You're already doing it. What would you recommend to other young people kind of going into college or coming out of college, wondering what the next step is, on how important it is and what they can do to defend basic fundamental human rights and religious freedom? What would you say to another young person?
Just a small question. Yeah, just a small one. You handed me there.
It's a very small one to end on.
Well, I mean, as a person of faith, my first piece of advice would probably be to just kind of sit back and do some prayer and reflection and kind of discern what it is that you might be called to do. And that could look very, very different for different people, depending on your state in life, depending on your work experience or your studies or anything like that. But so I would say discernment is probably a good first step.
Very good.
And I think secondly would be maybe looking around you and just trying to experience your surroundings beyond your own perspective. Pay attention to what other people in your community are experiencing, whether it's bias because of a religion, whether it's discrimination, whether there's kind of bad trends about crime or poverty. What's something that is really touching people in your community? And think about what it might look like to engage on those issues, even if it's something you don't have a background in. Think about what it might look like to kind of have that solidarity with people around you and to become involved in what concerns them.
Yeah, that's good advice. Slowing down, seek discernment, and then figuring out in community, how do we serve the common good, and where does religious freedom fit
Right.
into that?
No man is an island.
That's right. That's right. Erica, thank you so much for these few minutes together and your work already. Thank you.
All right. It was great to talk to you, David. Thank you.